Hey, last video here, and directly after talking about, the Earth being at the center of the universe and everything like that I covered in the previous video, it makes a statement about, other Christians say all these different things, and they just ignore it, and, they say, well, we don't really care if it's inaccurate and wrong there, and whatever. Well, no, we do. We have perfectly valid explanations, such as my previous videos, about those things. Seriously, if you want to debunk Christianity, okay, stop arguing with armchair theologians who really aren't even that good. Stop arguing with the guy that only is a nominal Christian at best. You can start arguing with people like this. Ravi Zacharias, William Lane Craig, John Polkinghorne, any number of those kinds of guys. Michael Ramsden is a good guy for you to try and attack on that. Actually go after the guys. James White. You wanna know about what the Bible said about something, especially in Hebrew? Go argue with James White. Seriously. You're gonna be really angry and embarrassed when you're done. But okay, call these guys up. They have shows, some of them. They have many books you can read. Some of them are very inexpensive. They're not hard to procure. There are hundreds of their videos online, on YouTube. I might even link to a few of them below. Okay? If you want to debunk Christianity, argue with those guys. Argue with the people who are educated in the field and who actually know something about it. Okay? Don't argue against the people that people like Richard Dawkins are arguing against. Yes, I know he's been in the debate with some of these people and he lost them miserably. But don't argue with the not even casual Christian, because even he might really put up a good argument against you. Argue against those guys. Seriously. I mean, if you want to really make a serious attempt, if you feel that Christianity is somehow so bad and so wrong and that people need to know the truth, then you need to argue against people who feel it is so right and so good that they argue for it for a living. Argue against them and see how far you get. Probably not very. Not with these arguments. I'm sorry, but they're not very good arguments. And the worst ones of them all. The worst she saved for last, and that helps because that's what I'm going to get to. Compared Jesus to Horus, Krishna, Mithra, and other people of that nature. Swearing up and down that they had disciples, were part of trinities, were men that became gods, etc., etc. This isn't true of any of them. None of them. I can only surmise she's getting all of her information from either the source of or the actual video of Zeitgeist the movie. Other atheists have thoroughly debunked all of the claims. All of the claims. Not just one or two, or claims of convenience. All of the claims. I'll put some links to some sites and such below that thoroughly debunk all the claims of alleged ripping off of other deities' myths, and then that somehow is Jesus. Horus, for instance, born of a virgin, December 25th, had 12 disciples, etc., and died for the sins of mankind. Okay, well, if by virgin you mean that his mother took the body of her slain husband, put him back together, threw some magic on him, couldn't find his penis, used a wooden phallus in place of that, impaled herself on it, and then with her magical goddess powers impregnated herself and then gave birth to Horus. If that is a virgin birth, sure. There's no evidence or connection to Horus whatsoever to December 25th. He did not have 12 disciples. He either had 8 I think, or 4, I don't remember now, or like 30 or so, depending on what text you're reading and whether you're talking about pre-Christian or post-Christian things of that nature. He did not resurrect. The myth is really convoluted as to whether Horus is his own father or not, and therefore dies and kind of comes back through this process of his mother putting his father's body together again and making a phallus of wood or whatever and using that to impregnate herself. But that is nothing like the bodily resurrection story of Jesus Christ. It's laughable that this is even comparative. That would be like me comparing, in 1,000 years, there's John F. Kennedy, and there's also Abraham Lincoln, and I have deduced that they are in fact the same person. Okay, they were born, or they became president in exactly 1 century apart. So there's really only one number difference between the 18 and the 19. When they became president. They share various similarities, such as they were both assassinated, in a public place by a fanatic, a lone gunman, who was caught and then died before he was tried. And there are various conspiracies behind his death, allegedly, and all of this. So, obviously, Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy are the same guy, and it's really just the same story. It's just a rehash of the exact same events of the same guy. Unless you actually know any of the details of any of that, that seems maybe to somebody, like if you were explaining this to aliens like 1,000 years from now, if like some big World War III like nuked everything and there weren't any accurate records of anything and all they knew were some of these bare facts about the stories, then sure, you would think that that's just the same thing. But if you actually knew any detail at all about these events, one was killed in Texas, the other was killed nowhere near Texas. They were in fact 100 years apart factually. They were killed in totally different times. And under very different circumstances. It's the same kind of nonsense. And she's got Krishna here. No, I mean, there are a very smattering handful of references to Krishna that resemble the story of Jesus, and only at the most superficial levels. It doesn't work. My favorite is Mithra. Mithra is supposed to have been crucified, except not at all. Just period. There's you can Wikipedia the thing, for crying out loud, and see that is not how Mithra died. My favorite part is Mithra, born of a virgin. Again, well, sure, if spontaneously coming to life from a rock is being virgin born, sure. Because that's how the myth of Mithra. Now, later on, the story was amended in other ways. After Jesus, it was amended. There are no historians that argue that point at all. But no, Mithra was, a totally different kind of god entirely. Anyway, they're not men. They're not gods who became men in most cases. So much as sometimes the story will, become that they were men that became gods sometimes, or half gods, half man, such as Hercules and such. But that's very different than being the eternal one creator of all the universe, who became a man to sacrifice himself for the sins. Most of these religions, by the way, the Horus religion, or the Egyptian religion surrounding Horus, Krishna, Mithras, they don't even have a concept of sin per se that needs to be atoned for. That's a completely foreign concept, atonement for sin in that way. There were sacrifices and so forth to get the favor of the gods. It's not the same thing as an atonement for your rebellion towards a god. It's not the same thing. You were trying to, in pagan mythology, you tried to manipulate the god by your actions and your sacrifices. In Judaism and Christianity, and likewise, God is needing something to carry the weight of your penalty for disobedience to Him. And you cannot gain favor through any of this. He shows favor to whom He shows favor, and doesn't to whom He doesn't. It's very, very clear all through the entirety of the Bible. That God is merciful who He reigns in the just and the unjust, and so on. He's merciful to whom He's merciful, and unmerciful to who He's unmerciful towards. It's not to say that He's completely arbitrary. He does reward people from time to time, but not if they're trying to manipulate Him. If you pray to God in order for Him to be manipulated into giving you things, He'll probably give you something. You're not going to like it. That's not how He operates. You should be good because you respect and love God, and then He may also reward you. But if you are looking for the reward itself and trying to just manipulate Him into it, totally foreign concept to Judaism and Christianity. Now again, there are some Christians who may think that, the really highly uneducated ones, but I mean, those exist everywhere. I mean, you're going to sit there and tell me you don't have any uneducated atheists that think bupkis about all kinds of things? No, I've met them. I'm a little bit responding to some of that right now. To paraphrase an atheist who actually debunked the Zeitgeist movie, which I'm going to try and link below, if Christianity is BS, the answer to BS is not more BS. So if you're trying to debunk Christianity based on really spurious, half-cocked ideas of parallels between other religions and the story of Jesus, that's not how you do it. If you want to argue against Christianity, you're going to have to come up with something a little more substantial. You're going to have to come up with the idea that either Jesus didn't exist at all, which historians used to try to go with and now can't. There's a couple of famous atheists who even have said, well, okay, I used to think Jesus didn't really exist. Yeah, He probably did. He just didn't do any of the stuff the Bible says He did. Or you're going to have to explain why He does exist and didn't do anything the Bible says that He did. And then explain why other people said that He did those things. You're going to have to come up with something. You're going to have to either say, well, the story that the apostles gave people was completely made up. I mean, basically, you're left with these options, okay? Jesus was either crazy, and the people who followed Him, okay, were also crazy, all of them, hundreds of people, not just 12. He was followed by lots of people. 12 were just particulars. Or he was a liar, and people were fools who followed Him, all of them, all in the same way, which may actually make Him much worse than what He said He was, or He's the God of the universe that He said He was. Those are your options. And if He was that, then because the people who followed Him believed that, then they must be right, because that's what He is. Either He and the people who followed Him are wrong and crazy and liars or fools or whatever, or, hi Katie, or He's God. Or you have to come up with some other kind of explanation as to why the Bible makes the claims that it does, and why it has withstood the test of time so darned well. Yeah, I guess my sign-off on that is, to paraphrase Morgan Freeman's character in the one Batman movie, good luck.